Shahbaj Makul, and this is a presentation on the SplitSmart software. To begin, we will go over the system overview initially. So first, the purpose of the software is to create a convenient way for splitting expenses between individuals or a group of people, and keep track of that. The key features for this software includes creating an account, using that, using group as a way to splitting expenses, then creating expenses, tracking them, expense approval via admin or an approver, then using balance calculations, and finally report generations. This presentation will cover the technical scope of the project. We will illustrate the UML diagrams for the system structure and the behavior between different parts of the system, how they communicate and the relationships between them. So first we will go over the class diagrams. This is the main domain level diagram for the system. I will explain why it doesn't include many of the other features that conventionally it does, but based on the best UML diagram creation practices, it is recommended to have a clear domain level diagram that depicts the entire business structure of the system, rather than focusing on specifics for every use cases. So that's why I tried to minimize this and have it cover all the systems. So to begin, we have the user class, and the admin class inherits from user all its attributes and the methods. The admin class has additional methods which are our use cases, and all of these methods basically cover all the use cases that we have determined from the functional requirements for the system that was given to us. So first I have the add user to the group, so that's a use case, and then we have remove group as a whole. Then we have the remove user from the group for admin, and for the user class it has the basic functionalities such as login, logout, registration, updating user profile, like editing their username, like first name, last name, email or phone number. The notification class has its own methods such as notifying all members when there is a new member added or there is a new expense created. Notifying new member is applied when an admin invites a new member, and the system will trigger a notification to that new user, giving them the link to join that group. And it also has a basics and notification for chatting and things like that. The group class has its own methods for add member, because it's best to keep separation of concerns, so the group would have the ability to do that rather than something else. Then it has the archive group as well. So this admin's remove group only applies to himself, but this delete group will have impact on the entirety of the group. Basically anyone else wouldn't be able to interact with that after this, but for this one it will only impact themselves basically, and that's only this one is only available to the main creator, who is the admin. Then we have the edit group information, which is available to all the admins. They can edit any of the information for the group, such as the description, group name, basically those. And then lastly we have the remove member. It is also available to the admins. That's basically triggered from the admin class. Next we have the payment method, and it kind of happens in the background rather than available in the front end. These methods I meant. so it has the archive payment. When there is a payment completed, it will archive the payment so that it's available for record keeping and historical records. It also stores the expense data for the user, so how much they paid and when they paid. If it's archived, like if it's completed, then it's archived, the payment ID for reference, and then the status. The record payment basically records that. Next we have the expense class, which has the details for a specific expense. It has also the methods for approval or rejecting. So after a user creates a expense, then an approver or an admin can review that expense, and then based on that they can either reject or approve that. An user who created that expense or an admin can also delete that expense. They have the ability to do that. Then we have the submit for approvals. This is basically when the draft is created and user is entering their expense report, and when they submit that, it doesn't get available to everyone, but it only gets submitted for approval until an admin decides to approve that. This is the design level class diagram. So this is what I was talking about, and this basically focuses on a specific use case and how it interacts with the entire system in specifics, rather than explaining everything here, which will be cumbersome, especially if I'm trying to have two of these in that one single diagram. So this one is more for the development side or the testing, and this is more focuses on the business side or the stakeholders. But here we have the group member view, which basically is the control, which controls the UI side of things, takes in the information from the user, confirmation, displaying things if the member is added, getting the search input, showing error, confirmation, things like that. This interacts with the group manager, which is a control class, and it has all the attributes such as the group name and members and status, things like that. It has the methods such as processing, adding the new member, then process, invite member, and searching the user. After getting information from here, these will get triggered based on the decisions this one made. And this has the ability to control these two control classes as well. So if the user selects like inviting a new user, then inviting a new member, then they will the invitation manager will trigger an invitation and send that user that link to join that group chat. It has also the ability to trigger a notification for notifying group, entire group, and then also the new member. But that happens when the user has like confirmed that they want to add that user. So after the user confirms that they want to add that user, then the group manager will trigger the DAO manager. If it's an existing user, then it will just add that user to the database and wait, and also it will trigger this method from the notification manager to notify the new members, and after that's successful, it will also notify all the members that hey, this new user is created. The data access object manager has the ability to write on these tables for the database. So the user will have these columns, or the row, those columns. It has the user ID, email, username, first name, last name, and phone number. The primary key is the user ID. For the group, has the group name member, it has the primary key, the group table, and the notifications. This applies to the notification it's sending, and it has the notification ID, message, and recipient, the status of that message, if they've read it or not. So these are the entity class. Next design level class diagram is the create expense. So when the user is creating expense, this will be the workflow of that, and this is the class diagram. It has the current expense data, and also to display create expense form, and then submit expense data. So this is first triggered, and then when the user enters all the information and submits it, and this gets triggered, and they send all the expense as a parameter. The expense manager receives those data and then creates an expense. It can also notify you through the notification manager. It validates the data before it does all of this. And then the DAO manager can fetch expense, fetch the group, fetch user, to get those data basically, and then to save the expense. So when the user creates that expense, the notification manager will send the notification to all the users. This will apply only when basically the expense is rejected, and the creator will get that message from the admin along with stating the fact that it was rejected. And the DAO manager, as I explained, it has all these entities, the notification ID and the message, the group ID, group name, then we have the expense data for the expense ID, amount, how much is the expense, the date for that expense, the description, like a road trip or something like that. The shared method, I decided to use a boolean because it's either split as a percentage or it's split equally, so the developers can choose which one they want to use, but the methods are limited to these two options. The primary key for this table is expense ID. The user ID remains, the user table remains the same as the last design level diagram. And then we have the payment method. It has the payment ID, date, and the amount. Moving on to the sequence diagrams. So for this sequence diagram, we are illustrating the create expense workflow. So at the beginning, a user can decide to create an expense. They will first click the button on the expense, and then it will go into the expense view where it will show the create expense form. The user will fill that out and enter all the information. After the expense view gets that, it will create all the create that expense which through the expense manager. The expense manager will validate the data, and then after if it's validated, then it will send that to the DAO manager to save that, which will interact with the database tables. It will send the add record to the expense table or entity. Here the entity we will basically say if it's saved or not, and it will return. If it's successful, the DAO manager will send a success message, and then that will go through the expense view, and the user will see that in the background. And so while that's happening, the expense manager will also trigger the notification manager to send notification to everyone. It will then, this one will trigger the DAO manager to notify everyone, because we don't want to give the access of the database to the notification manager directly. We want to go through the DAO manager, and that it will get the member IDs from the group for all the members. Then it will get back to the DAO manager, and it will get, based on those member IDs, it will get their email or username and return back to the DAO manager and send all the notifications. In the meantime, the user will receive the notification that the expense was created successfully, and they will see a success on the screen. This is the sequence for adding a member. Initially, the user clicks the add member button. The display, the group member view, which is the boundary class, it will return the input form. The user will enter the input data or the username or the email that they want to, of the user they want to add. The group member view will take that data and then send it to the group manager, and it will find that user through the DAO manager. The DAO manager will go into the user entity and then search for that user. It will return that search user, that user, specific user, and then go back to the group member again. The user will then receive a confirmation if they want to add that user. If they click confirm, they want to add that user, that the group member view will then go to the group manager again and then process that add member, and it will invoke this add user method that will go into the DAO manager. And then we want to, since we have that user's ID, we can directly go into the group entity and then add that user to that group's database. If it's successful, then we go back to the group member view and then basically tell that to it's successful. And while that's happening, we will also do the processing of adding that member. It will also receive it in the group manager, and the group manager will trigger the notification of the new member being added into the notification manager. And also we want to send that new member the notification, so it will bulk create that notification to that new user and also everyone into the group. And then we will go to the DAO manager, go into the notifications, and then basically create this notification and send it to those users. Then we go back to the group member view again and finally end that through member added screen, and the admin will know that the member was added and the notifications were sent. In the next chapter we will go through the state diagrams. So this is our creating this expense. So initially when an expense is being created, we will first go to the draft stage of the state of that expense class. It will have all the details such as how much was the expense, the date, description, the split method, and the status. At the initial phase, when they submit it, it will have the ID. The database will give that an ID, and the status would be set to pending because of the pending approval stage. During the draft or after submitting that phase, the expense, the user can go ahead and delete that expense if they want to, or if they wait, then an admin will review that. If they review and then decide to accept that expense, then this method will be triggered, which will mark the expense as approved. If they decide to reject it, then it will be deleted. It will be moved to the deleted stage, but not deleted from the database as entirety. The status would be set to 0 or probably 2. It depends on the developer if what they want to choose, but basically they can decide upon a single value such as 2, so it just indicates that the that expense row was deleted by the admin. it will have the expense ID so that it knows which one it's deleting. The admin can also reject it. Then they would also have to enter the rejection reason, and the status would be updated as rejected. And then we have the final stage. So after either of this state ends, the payment life cycle begins when it's created. So when it's been created, the amount is being entered at the data, the date, the payment ID, and the status. This is created on the after the user enters those amount, date, and status. They get those data, and the database generates a payment ID. If they indicate that it wasn't paid fully based on the amount, then it will set to be pending. If they paid as whole, then the state would be successful, and the system will archive that payment rather than deleting, so that it's available for record keeping. And when another use case is that we want to be able to generate the expense reports, so this will be useful if we just archive it. In that state, it will have access to the payment ID and the is archived property, and both of these states mark the end of that workflow. And lastly, we have the group lifecycle. When a group is created, it has the group description, group ID, the name, and the status of the group. When the user wants to add a member, it gets activated, and then it has all these properties available that it needs to operate and execute these methods, such as editing the group information, which will edit those information, the name such as that, or the description, adding new members or removing an existing member, things like that. The admin can also decide to archive that group, but it won't be deleted. It will just stay on their profile, and nothing will happen to it, but they can decide to unarchive it, which will made it active again, and then people can interact with it again. But that also marks the end of that cycle. While being active, the group can be deleted or go into the deleted stage, but it will be marked as a deleted in the database, but won't be deleted, so that we have like historical record and maintain data integrity. And that is the end of the presentation. These UML diagrams provide a structure and a clear path for implementing the SplitSmart system. With the addition of these use case, the class diagrams, and also the sequence and the activity diagrams, this project outlines the system architecture and the interactions and behavioral logic of the entire system. These diagrams serve as a functional foundation for effective development and testing and the future enhancements by reducing unclarity or ambiguity and making a clear expectation of supposed processes. Here are the references for the system. The first one is the report, and the second is the software enterprise architect, which I use to create these diagrams. And that marks the end of the presentation. Thank you.